The rain tapped against the window as Karina arranged the dinner table for two. A delicate aroma of rosemary and garlic wafted through the small dining room, mingling with the soft flicker of candlelight. Tonight was special. 6 years since she and Jake had secretly said their vows, promising to love each other despite the world's obstacles. She glanced at the clock, 9:15 p.m. Jake was supposed to be home an hour ago. Her fingers brushed the smooth surface of her phone, debating whether to call him again. But the last time she'd called, he'd brushed her off with a curt, "Busy at work, Karina. Don't wait up." She sighed, sitting down in her seat. The roast chicken she'd carefully prepared was now cold, the wine untouched. Her reflection shimmered in the darkened window. A woman in her late 20s, her simple navy dress elegant but understated, her hair falling in soft waves over her shoulders. She looked like any other secretary waiting for her boss, and that stung, because that's all she was to the world. Jake's secretary. The choice had been mutual. Jake's family, owners of a massive business empire, had never approved of her. To keep their love safe, they decided to keep their marriage hidden until Jake secured control of the company. It made sense at the time, but lately Jake's affection had cooled. His once warm smiles had become distant glances, his thoughtful gestures replaced by indifference. Her stomach churned as the news channel played softly in the background. A familiar face appeared on the screen, and Karina's attention snapped to it. There was Jake, his sharp suit immaculate, his easy smile dazzling the reporters around him. But what he said next drained all the colour from her face. "I'm happy to announce my engagement to Lily Davenport," Jake declared, standing beside a stunning blonde woman in a sparkling gown. The cameras captured their smiles, the way Jake's hand rested lightly on Lily's back. "It's been a long time coming, and I couldn't be happier." The reporter's voice droned on about the merger between their families and the business implications, but Karina couldn't hear it over the roaring in her ears. Her vision blurred as she stumbled toward the TV, her knees threatening to give way. Her Jake, her husband, was announcing his engagement to someone else. Her trembling fingers turned the TV off, plunging the room into silence. The smell of the uneaten dinner turned her stomach. Karina stood frozen in the center of the room, her mind racing with questions she was too scared to answer. Had he ever loved her? Had she been a fool all this time, believing in a love that only she had felt? Her hand clenched the edge of the table as a new steely resolve hardened within her. She wouldn't cry, not tonight. But one thing was clear, she couldn't stay here anymore. Karina sat on the sofa, the clock ticking in the otherwise silent apartment. The candles on the dining table had burned down to their stubs, and the once beautiful dinner sat untouched, its aroma long faded. She had cleaned the dishes to keep her hands busy, but now there was nothing left to distract her. All that remained was an oppressive stillness and the lingering ache in her chest. It was nearing midnight when the sound of the front door opening shattered the silence. Jake stepped in, his tall frame silhouetted against the dim hallway light. He didn't even glance at the carefully set table or the half-melted candles. His face was unreadable, his tie slightly loosened, and his phone clutched in his hand. "You're late," Karina said softly, standing up. Her voice trembled despite her best effort to sound calm. Jake stopped mid-step, his expression hardening. "I told you not to wait up," he said, his tone curt and devoid of warmth. He set his phone on the counter and started unbuttoning his cuff as though her presence didn't matter. "Jake," she said, stepping closer, her voice cracking. "I saw the news. The engagement, Lily. What's going on? What does this mean?" His jaw tightened, but he didn't meet her eyes. Instead, he reached into his briefcase and pulled out a crisp white envelope. He handed it to her without a word. Karina stared at the envelope in disbelief. Her hands trembled as she opened it, pulling out a thick stack of papers. It didn't take long to understand. Bold black letters at the top read, "Divorce agreement." Her breath caught in her throat. "You're divorcing me?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. Jake finally met her gaze, his eyes cold and detached. "I need you to sign them within a week," he said. "It's better this way." Karina's chest tightened, as if someone had wrapped iron bands around her ribcage. "Better," she repeated, her voice rising. "For who, Jake? For you? For Lily? Was any of it real? Did you ever love me?" He flinched at her words, but his expression didn't soften. "It's done, Karina. Just sign them." Tears welled in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not in front of him. Not when he stood there, like a stranger. The man she'd loved for 6 years, now a shadow of himself. She clutched the papers to her chest, her knuckles white. "Fine," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "If this is what you want, I'll sign them. But don't expect me to stay a moment longer than I have to." Jake didn't respond. He simply turned and walked into the bedroom, leaving Karina standing alone in the living room, clutching the divorce papers like they might burn her. When the door clicked shut behind him, Karina sank onto the sofa, her legs too weak to hold her. The tears she'd held back streamed down her face, silent and relentless. She pressed her hands against her mouth to stifle the sobs, unwilling to give Jake the satisfaction of hearing her break. In the stillness of the night, Karina made a decision. She would leave without a fight, but before she went, she would fulfill her duties as his secretary one last time. It would be her final gift to the man who had broken her heart, and when she left, she wouldn't look back. The air in Jake's office was thick with tension as Karina sat behind her desk, typing away at her final report. It had been 6 days since Jake had handed her the divorce papers, 6 days since she'd made the decision to leave without a word, yet each passing moment was a battle to maintain her composure. The elevator chimed and Lily Davenport's unmistakable laughter echoed down the hallway. Karina's fingers froze on the keyboard as Lily strutted in, her designer heels clicking sharply against the polished floor. "Well, if it isn't the ever-loyal secretary," Lily said, her tone dripping with mockery. She leaned casually against Karina's desk, her diamond bracelet catching the light. "I hope you finished arranging Jake's schedule. After all, he's got a future to plan. With me." Karina didn't look up, refusing to take the bait. "Everything you need is in the folder," she said quietly, nodding toward the pristine files neatly organized on her desk. "Oh, how efficient," Lily sneered, picking up the folder and flipping through it lazily. "It's a wonder you lasted this long. You must have been really desperate for the job, but I suppose every kingdom needs its servants." Karina clenched her jaw but remained silent. She knew better than to let Lily see her pain. "Anyway," Lily continued, tossing the folder back on the desk, "don't let the door hit you on the way out. I'll make sure Jake never has to deal with inconveniences like you again." With a final smirk, Lily sauntered into Jake's office, leaving Karina to sit alone in the quiet humiliation of her words. Karina inhaled deeply, steadying herself. She wouldn't let this woman's cruelty shake her resolve. The rest of the week passed in a blur. Jake's indifference was sharper than any words Lily could throw at her. He barely acknowledged Karina's presence, treating her like any other employee. Each cold interaction was another nail in the coffin of her love for him. On the 7th day, her last day, Karina arrived early, her heart heavy but determined. She placed the signed divorce papers in an envelope, sealing them with a deliberate press. Alongside them, she left a letter, not to beg or explain, but to say goodbye. "Jake, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. I won't burden you with words about love or betrayal. I only hope you find what you're looking for, even if it was never me. Attached to files that should help with the expansion project. Consider them my last act as your secretary. Goodbye, Karina." She slipped the letter and the papers into a neat stack on his desk. Then she glanced around the office that had been her world for years. Memories flickered in her mind. Late nights spent helping Jake, quiet laughter over shared cups of coffee, the brief moments when he'd been hers entirely. Karina walked out of the building for the last time, her footsteps steady and unyielding. She didn't look back. As the cool night air wrapped around her, she pulled her coat tighter and let a single tear fall. She had given Jake her all, but now it was time to reclaim herself. She didn't know where she was going, but she knew one thing. This was the end of her life as Jake's shadow. A new chapter awaited, one she would write on her own terms. The train station buzzed with activity, a sea of commuters hurrying past Karina as she stood still, clutching her small suitcase. Her reflection in the glass doors of the departing train looked unfamiliar, her once bright eyes now dull, her posture slouched as if carrying an invisible weight. The train's whistle sounded, jolting her back to the present. Karina boarded without hesitation, finding an empty seat near the window. She placed her suitcase on the rack above and sank into the seat, resting her head against the cool glass. The cityscape blurred into streaks of light and shadow as the train pulled away. As the rhythm of the train soothed her frayed nerves, memories surfaced unbidden. 3 years ago, she had left behind a life of unimaginable luxury. She could still see the sprawling mansion where she grew up, the perfectly manicured gardens, and the fleet of cars parked in the circular driveway. Her family, the Eldridges, was one of the wealthiest in the country, but none of that mattered to her, not compared to Jake. She had met him at a charity gala hosted by her family. He was handsome, ambitious, and so utterly unlike the polished suitors her parents had paraded before her. For the first time in her life, she felt seen, not as an heiress, but as a person. But her family had disapproved of Jake from the start. He wasn't one of them, they'd said. Karina, defiant and in love, had walked away from it all, choosing a modest life with Jake over the gilded cage of her upbringing. Her lips curved into a bitter smile. "Love," she murmured to herself, the word tasting sour now. Love had brought her here, alone on a train with no home to return to and no future to cling to. Karina's hand instinctively moved to her stomach, resting there protectively. She had discovered the pregnancy just days before Jake handed her the divorce papers. She hadn't told him. What was the point? He was already gone, his heart elsewhere. The announcement had filled her with conflicting emotions: fear, grief, and surprisingly, a sliver of hope. This child would be her anchor, the reason to move forward, even if she had to do it alone. As the train sped toward her destination, Karina closed her eyes and let herself drift, her mind heavy with thoughts of the past and the uncertain road ahead.